We call it Spackle. Everybody hates it. We call it Spackle. I know it's joint compound, mud, whatever. Alright, we're here. It's just a nice Saturday. We got our plumbing roughed in. We got our electric roughed in. A couple, we'll old work box the sconce lights over the vanity once we set the vanity. We got the wiring for, our ceiling fan and the free gang box. There's going to be a ceiling fan light all in one, and then there'll be two LED wafers. We'll do one over the shower, one over here, and then we'll have the sconce lighting. That's pretty much it for that. And then basically we have the stud guard off our pipes. I have to run the vent for the ceiling fan out through the roof. We have to put baffles up in these corners where the R38 will block the airflow. And then we have to insulate this outside wall, insulate this attic section, and we're ready for sheetrock. So hopefully we can get this sheetrock. First, got to leave early today, but we'll see what happens.
Like Mike said, I had to leave early on this particular Saturday. It was for one of my good friend's weddings, so in my opinion, it was excusable. Anyway, I spent the first part of the day adding stud guards to the walls so we wouldn't puncture our plumbing, and also installing the insulation on the outside walls and ceiling. Meanwhile, Mike was cutting a hole in the roof in order to vent and install the bathroom fan. Due to the limited amount of time, Mike started cutting the sheetrock for the ceiling as I was hanging the insulation. At the very least, I wanted Mike there to help me with the sheetrock on the ceiling since it's a total pain to hang yourself.
Well, I screwed up and I was one piece short, so I'll be crawling in the attic later.
By the end of the day, we had hung all the sheetrock on the ceiling and about 2/3 of the rest of the walls. The next day, my wife and I showed up with a hangover to hang the rest of the sheetrock. Luckily, there wasn't much left to do, but we had some interesting cuts around the doorway, light switch, and AC vent. My wife actually did a decent job at screwing in the sheetrock once we had it in place. I guess watching all that HGTV finally paid off.
Alright, so bathroom is sheetrocked. We're at the end of my birthday weekend, and the Eagles are currently whooping up on the Commanders. Corny. We finished sheetrocking. If Lana, you want to come in here, we're getting ready to spackle. We call it Spackle. Everybody hates it. We call it Spackle. I know it's joint compound, mud, whatever. We call it spackle and tape. I don't know if that's a Philly thing or what, but we got all our boards up. All of our plumbing is set for the vanity. Orlando came over. He was nice enough to come by, and we have our lights, our wires running here. So we're gonna have 3 sconces with 2 mirrors, vanity down here, 60-inch double vanity. Toilet will be here. We have a 3-gang outlet right here if you want to come in and check that out, Lon. So the outlet there, so we're gonna have 3 switches. One will control the vanity lights, one will control, Mike said it before, I might have to go pick it up. One will control the fan light and one will control the fan. And then the other one, the one will control the shower light. We're gonna have a wafer light up there and the fan, because you want the fan to be on if the shower is on. The other one will control the other wafer light, which will be over here, and I believe the fan light. So that's that. So we'll do the first coat of spackle, and hopefully Dan, our buddy Dan, can come by and do the rest of the spackle for this, and then we'll install this door, the trim, and start tiling.
Now, unfortunately, it was time to spackle. But before I get started, let's clear something up regarding the terminology we use here. Our most popular video on this channel is a YouTube short where Mikey Plums yells at me because I missed a stud while screwing in a piece of sheetrock. Well, in that video, Mike called the quote-unquote joint compound, or quote-unquote mud, Spackle.
Alright, Mikey Plums here with a Tuesday tip. When your brother sucks at screwing in sheetrock and he misses the studs,
Thanks.
when you go to spackle it, it's going to stick out. So you can see when you pull the screw out, the paper comes with it. So what you want to do is you want to wet it up a little bit.
And half of YouTube felt the need to inform us that it's not in fact spackle. We do know that spackle is in fact not joint compound, but that they are very similar materials. For people that don't know, spackle is generally used for small imperfections in your sheetrock walls. Think gashes, nail holes, removed drywall anchors, or even possibly if someone punches a hole in your drywall. Joint compound, or as some people like to call it, mud, is used to actually combine the joints of your drywall sheets. If you Google the two, they are very, very similar materials, but I believe spackle contains a couple extra chemical compounds. Anyway, as far as the terminology goes, for some reason Mike and I grew up calling the joint compound spackle. We didn't realize this was so controversial until we started this channel, but apparently it is. So I started asking around, and the best I can tell is that in the Philadelphia area, people tend to use the term spackle interchangeably with joint compound or mud. The most convincing reason I've heard for this is from a drywall and tape guy that we work with that said there was a brand back in the day that made joint compound, but the brand was called Spackle. Moving on, this was my first attempt at doing any type of taping. So even though this was filmed in time lapse and I sped the film up, it still looks like I'm moving in slow motion. In my opinion, this is definitely not something you want to do yourself if you're expecting the finished result to look fantastic. Do yourself a favor and call a spackle guy. Alright, my first attempt at a first coat of spackle, aka mud, aka joint compound. It's probably terrible. We'll see if Dan can salvage what I did, but you gotta start somewhere. So here it is. Luckily, our buddy Dan saved the day and salvaged my first coat of spackle, so I was able to move on to priming and painting the bathroom. Generally speaking, for the residential home, the drywall process will require 3 coats for a finished interior space. You finish a coat, let it dry, then sand, and start the next coat until the joints and corners look smooth. At that point, you can begin priming the drywall and then painting. Sanded up all the little spots that were left. Probably didn't do the best job, but we'll see. And then prime this bad boy. So this weekend, got some running around to do tomorrow and order some doors, pick up some supplies, then we'll be back here. Try to install this door. Need to get this door installed and get the trim set up so that we can tile down here, because once we can tile there, we can tile the floor, we can tile everywhere, and really get this bathroom rolling. I just vacuumed, cleaned up around the edges there, primer's all dried up. We're gonna paint the ceiling first. We're just doing basic ceiling white. So I'll cut in around the edges and then roll the ceiling. I got a couple other things to do while I wait for that to dry, and then we'll paint the walls, get the first coat done today, and should have this place painted up by end of the weekend. At this point, I took my first crack at installing a pre-hung door by myself. I needed this door hung so I could install the door trim so that I knew how much tile would be squeezed between the tub and the trim. My first attempt was a partial fail, but I came back the next day with a night's rest and managed to wrap it up. Now that our walls are sealed up and our doors installed, we're pretty much ready to start tiling the tub and the floor. Stay tuned as we continue to work through our total house renovation.